bit more now that Americans are aware of what's going on, the data mining and the cataloging of phone records by intelligence agencies, it has started a fierce debate. But what rights are Americans willing to compromise in the name of national security? We're joined by two men with different perspectives on this. First is Jim Harper. He is with the Cato Institute and has written about the danger of collecting mass amounts of information on Americans. He's in Washington for us now. And by Skype from London is Ron Beckstrom. He is a cybersecurity analyst who says it's a good thing. I want to start with you, Rod. You're not concerned about the big brother aspect to all of this?
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I think that the government needs to have an intelligence function that helps to protect the country. But of course, any function like that, any programs have got to comply with the Constitution of the United States of America. So I think that these revelations raise a lot of questions that, as you said and mentioned, you and Jessica, this is going to be debated and torn open between Capitol Hill and the White House and other places. So I think it's the start of a very, very important national dialogue, and I think we've got to take these issues very seriously in terms of how a proper balance can be achieved that supports the U.S. Constitution.
Okay, so Jim, before I have a couple of questions for you, but I want to ask both of you gentlemen this question. Jim, first to you. I think many Americans have already assumed that their information at least had the possibility of being looked at. If you work for any corporation, it can read your emails if they own your device, your cell phones. They can look at your devices, they can monitor your phone calls. What is so surprising about this information? First to you, Jim.
Well, we certainly share a lot of information online these days, a lot of information with loved ones more and more all the time. We benefit a great deal from it. But none of that gives the government the right to access this information, much less store it for long periods of time. We're talking about, in this case, as much as 7 years, if Senator Dianne Feinstein is correct, of records about all our phone calls. This document right here, just 4 pages double-spaced, is the released document that Americans haven't seen in something like 230 years. It's a general warrant. A general warrant, something that the Revolutionary War was fought about because King George issued those allowing his soldiers to rummage houses in the United States. This allows the National Security Agency to access information about every American's calls and catalog that information, keeping it essentially forever. Very revealing information with very little security benefit. And I think that's the important thing we need to talk about. The balance is not struck by collecting all information about all Americans' calls. Heaven knows that the vast majority of Americans are good people who do nothing wrong and don't deserve to end up in databases like this.
So having said that, if the vast majority of Americans are good people who have done nothing wrong, then what's wrong with looking at the information if you have nothing to hide then?
Well, in the United States of America, one hopes, a free country, you should have privacy for any reason or no reason. We have a Fourth Amendment that restricts the government's access to information because the framers knew about the unique powers of government. The government still has unique powers. We want government to have power to investigate criminality, to discover terrorism, but they must do so in a particular way. In fact, they have to state with particularity what they're looking for when they go to get a warrant. And again, this general warrant is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
It allows the government to collect all information about all people's calls.
Hey, so Rod, the same questions to you. After 9/11, most people just sort of assumed that much of our information was being looked at anyway. So again, the same question that I asked before.
Well, I got to side a little bit with Jim here. I mean, I think that if these allegations are true, and there's even with the White House confirming in some way that they are getting these phone records from all citizens through Verizon, that's extremely broad sweeping and concerning. And I think even for some of those that helped to shape the Patriot Act, even the author had some comments, I believe, yesterday saying that he really didn't anticipate it would be used like this, and that's the risk of legislation like the Patriot Act that some of us were concerned about at the time, the legality or the constitutionality of it. So I think Don, the internet has ripped the world open, and everyone's data is vulnerable, including the government's, and that's the flip. That's what we're seeing right now. The government's sensitive data is being leaked. We saw with WikiLeaks, and the trial that's going on of Manning right now. But we're moving into an extremely transparent world, and we're going to have to change our structures to deal with that. And even intelligence organizations are going to have to realize the activities that they're doing will probably be put under much more scrutiny than they ever have been in the past. And with respect to citizens, Don, I think people thought some more things might have been happening after 9/11. But I think a lot of people I speak to are extremely surprised by the breadth of the data that is spoken about in the warrant and in the revelations.
That this is indeed
the allegations.
This is indeed overreaching. Thank you so much, gentlemen. We really appreciate you joining us here on CNN.